My name is Ian. Those weren't my words. We've been fortunate enough to have an entrepreneur who became, after hearing about conditions in creches across South Africa, and apparently according to the HSRC, there's about 22 to 25,000 daycare creches across South Africa. His name is Ian Buchan, and he's a man who's a businessman who sheds tears. And when he heard about the children in the creches of South Africa, I've actually seen tears run in his eyes. The words that you saw there are not boastful words, because the programs he's talking about, he didn't design personally, he enabled them. He's a businessman, and the only businessman that I know now, and I work with a lot of KZN's wealthiest men, he's the only businessman that I know who's investing his family's inheritance in early childhood. So he took on two very experienced educationists, between them having more than 80 years experience in education, to roll out a program which will enable a game change in early childhood. The Unlimited Child is a story, and that story at this very moment is being told in Hong Kong, it's being told in Brisbane, it's being told in Sydney. The story is also being told right now in London, it's being told in Florida, USA, it's being told in Northern California, it's being told right now in Cape Town, and today part of the story will be told in Bloemfontein in a very, very hasty period of time. There's a creche in a place called Mthatha in the old Transkei, and it's alongside the N2 highway, and it's an RDP house that's been converted into a creche or a daycare centre. And in that particular creche, there are 18 children cared for by a woman who earns a living by caring for these children. The children are deposited there by their mothers. At 8 o'clock, the door is locked because there's no fence between the N2 and this particular building. There's one window in the building, and that is closed at 8 o'clock so the children can't climb out. Now, if you've ever been into the Transkei in the middle of a summer, can you imagine 18 children and one daycare woman in this house where the door is closed and the window is locked? And it was that particular creche that got us going. We knew that something had to be done. We all know about white paper. Frida, is it white paper number 5 of 2002? And they spoke about 2010. Well, in 2010, I happened to go into a grade R class in a shanty town called Quarry Heights near KwaMashu in Durban. And in this grade R class, there were 2 teachers, both with a level 4 qualification, and 65 children in a prefab room. The desks were desks designed for grade 7s. And these 65 children were sitting and reciting, learned alphabets, and whatever else they did in this particular grade R class. Meaningless stuff. And sadly, that goes on across Africa, and David's already referred to that kind of problem in learning. The question is, and it was referred to last night, both by Jonathan Jensen and by Mahovia, the question is, can our children wait another day? And Jonathan is correct in saying that when you're starting a new project and a new idea, you can't hurry before you've actually got your infrastructure in place. But our concern is that every day wasted, every year wasted in early childhood, another cohort of children is going to be a missed generation. Our children just can't wait anymore. We've been talking for 20 years. In 2008, a group of us realized that something had to be done on a larger scale. Ian Buchan, the motivator behind our project, wanted to take kits of toys and take them to 22,000 creches across South Africa and place them in the creches so that there were toys available for the children to get the stimulation needed, fine motor coordination, gross motor coordination, and other activities needed to stimulate the children. Well, GAME, a company in KZN, and I assume elsewhere, Mass Cash, we're already doing that. Depositing these lovely cabinets of toys in creches across KZN. And those cabinets of toys were never opened because the ladies didn't know how to use them. And so that's when I phoned my colleague, because Frida and I did our 5 years penance in the Department of Education in Pretoria under 3 ministers. I phoned Frida and I said, Frida, where do we go with this idea of Ian Buchan's? And she flew down, and she was the person who gave us the direction. She's telling me that I've only got 5 minutes left. She was the person who gave us the correct direction to go. The model is a simple one. There's our scorecard over 5 years. And although we've reached over 314 creches, and we have another 40 creches who come to our meetings that we haven't reached yet, we're not going to say to you that we've won in every one, because we've failed forward in many instances, and we would be lying to you if we had transformed every creche. But over 5 years, we've transformed, actually visibly transformed 250 creches. And I know that it's not measured empirically, but we had a young lady from Cape Town, Nadia Lubowski, came up to see our project in Durban a couple of weeks ago, and we took her into one of our pilot creches. And afterwards she came away and said, Ian, the skin, the hair on my arms was really, and there were goosebumps on my skin. She said, I've never been in a disadvantaged creche before and seen a woman multitasking and multi-activities going on within the same grade R, the 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds. And she went away and said, well, we're taking the Unlimited Child to Cape Town. And that's the replication we would like to share with you. 30,000 children we've reached, but it's not worth doing it unless it's a quality project. The model is based or informed by 2 objectives. The first is to get quality learning equipment into creches and ongoing support. And then the training to use that equipment, and that's where Frida came into it. The second is that there's got to be a continuation of the learning, and that learning goes on by grouping clusters of creches in geographic areas, and we have these cluster meetings and new learning takes place so that the learning is continuous. Those are our 2 objectives, but it's also underpinned by internationally accepted principles that early childhood is the very foundation of the education house, and also underpinned by the fact that little children learn through play, not through traditional formal classrooms. Little children learn through play. And so some of the things in the model, well, I'll just go through 1 or 2 of the things in the model. We start by selecting creches. We do baseline surveys, and those baselines become records. And then we select creches, and we do sometimes reject if we think there's no passion. We look for the right person, the 3 Ps, the right place, the right person, and if there's no passion, it's not worth starting. And so we have made some mistakes. Once we've selected the creches and done the baselines, we then do the training, which was informed by Frida Wilkins and is completely aligned, was aligned to the old RNCS, and now is aligned to NELS and to the new framework. We're completely aligned to where the curriculum takes us. We have a caregiver training program. We have a monitoring system which is absolutely essential. Without monitoring, our project would fail hopelessly. And at the moment, we've got a monitor who is very, very ill. She's losing her sight. And her 40 creches aren't being monitored, and we can see the weeds growing already. It's easily replicated. So let's have a look quickly. There's Frida in the middle of some of our caregivers. Those caregivers were trained in 2009, and their creches are still going. They've still got our equipment. You can see our equipment in the creches still being used. It's because it's quality equipment. It's not rubbish. It's quality equipment. It's the same equipment you'll find in an exclusive preschool in La Lucia or Houghton. We give them a daily program. Jonathan Jansen spoke about Afrikaans schools having routine. We agree with them. We give our creches routine. So there, the routine we give them in pictures because children can't read. There you've got a woman doing the early morning ring, and there's one, that's just a prefab in the middle of the Umgeni Valley, and there's this woman who we've trained doing her ring in her daily program. We provide them with kits of toys that take the children from 6 months to grade R. And the children know how to use those toys. Quality toys, not rubbish. They have to be the best. Those blocks are unlimited child blocks. Frida gave me the guidance and I had them made in Durban. And you can see the way they stack, that the children stack them themselves and they learn through the stacking of those blocks. They learn shapes. There's no color on those blocks because blocks are about construction. They're not about colors. We monitor in geographic clusters, and the support of the monitoring comes through these cluster meetings. The Unlimited Child is a story, and here's a little story. I know that my last minute is up, but that's Hlingiwe, and let me just tell you the story, because even the hardened men, and I was a school principal, and I was most probably known by all sorts of names as a school principal, but I now shed tears in my job. I actually shed tears. Now here's a young girl that Frida and I found when we were training in 2011. And she immediately struck us. She's now 22 years of age. And we asked her if she'd like to join our training team as an interpreter and as an assistant trainer. And she was excited by that because her income was 700 Rand a month. That's what she earned as a creche caregiver, 700 Rand a month. Now that's about average across the country. The Unlimited has now employed Hlingiwe as a monitor and a trainer. And she actually goes out to cluster meetings and trains caregivers twice her age, and they respect her. She's absolutely brilliant, and she's never been to university. That's what's wrong about our country. There is Hlingiwe. She should be the next Frida Wilkins, the first black Frida Wilkins in this country. But you know, she can't afford to go to university. She's absolutely brilliant, a story in itself. But she does go out and she runs our cluster meetings. That's her program, not ours. That's her training of the creche caregivers. And that's how we keep the thing going. We've made mistakes, we've stopped, we've looked, we've corrected, we've then taken action, and we've moved on. And here's an example. That hut was in a valley, in a desolate valley. And it's a wattle and daub hut. And when they came along to our training, our monitor in the area said, we've got to drop them, they're useless. And one of our other monitors said, no, I'd like to go to that creche called Corbishley and see if we can do something about it. And she went in and she turned it around, she transformed it and had the woman passionate and working. And as a result of that change, we brought partners on board, including a number of Christian churches and some Australians. And they built the Corbishley women who were running a creche of 30 children in that building. They built her that. They built them that. Now, the Unlimited Child doesn't do that. That's not our focus. Our partners do things like that. And so we have partners that feed. We have partners that build. We have partners in the OT world. We cannot run our project without partnerships, and it's through these partnerships that we can scale up. Thank you very much for that.